Hi, I'm Autumn. I'm a first semester nursing student here at MSU, and today for our objects, we're going to be going over a stethoscope, a blood pressure cuff, and then how to manually take someone's blood pressure. So to begin, just to go over parts of a stethoscope, so you have the diaphragm here, which is the larger part of a stethoscope, and the bell is the smaller side. The diaphragm is used for more high-pitch, high-frequency noises, so you can listen to your lung sounds, your heart sounds, and your bowel sounds with that. And then the bell is typically used for, like I said, low frequency, low pitch noises. So that's more for things like heart murmurs and just quieter sounds in the body that you might not be able to hear with the diaphragm. And then to switch sides, if you go up here, you can just literally spin it. And let's see here, there's a little circle right here, if you can see that. And literally just to spin it to sides, you just twist it like that and it'll click. And that's just how you switch from side to side to use the bell and the diaphragm. And then to place a stethoscope in your actual ears, you're gonna want your two earpieces, if you can see, facing outward like this. So I would put it in as so, with it facing out. Otherwise, if you do place it in the wrong way, you won't be able to hear any noises whatsoever. All right, so the next step is to use your actual blood pressure cuff, which is called a sphygmometer in medical terms. You can get these anywhere. I get mine off of Amazon. So the first step is really just to open it up and take everything out. All right, and then there's many parts to a blood pressure cuff, so we'll start at the top. This is just the gauge. It reads the numbers on your blood pressure cuff to give you what your actual blood pressure is. And then you have your cuff, which is just like this little balloon-shaped inflation, and you'll pump that up to take a blood pressure, which will then in turn go to this, which is just the actual cuff that goes onto an individual's arms, and it'll get inflated, and then we'll go by step how to take the blood pressure. And then you have this little valve here, which all the way to the right, it'll be tight with air, so you can't pump any air out, and then when you deflate it, all the air will go out of a person's arm. All right, so this is the gauge that goes along with the blood pressure cuff. If you can see, it runs all the way from 20 all the way to 300, and a gauge is measured in millimeters per mercury, so it's mmHg, and that is just what is pumped up into the actual inflation of the cuff. And you'll want to take the systolic and diastolic blood pressure, and I will explain further what that is. But this gauge will just go onto the cuff of the individual's arm, or you can hold it for personal preference. It doesn't really matter. You're just going to want to have a good eyesight at it, and I will explain further how to record the actual blood pressure readings. All right, so now we're going to be doing the manual blood pressure. This is Jasmine. She's going to be my patient for the day. And most places, in most hospital settings, you can do blood pressure electronically on a screen, but in case of a power outage, it's nice to know how to do it manually for your patient. So I'm going to be placing the cuff on her arm, and you want to make sure these two arrows right here are lined up with her brachial pulse. So the brachial pulse is on the inside of the elbow crease, so you kind of feel for their bicep muscle right in the middle, and then you'll go over and there'll be like a slight groove that you can put your fingers on, and you kind of have to apply a little bit of firm pressure, but it shouldn't hurt your patient at all. And then you're going to be feeling for that pulse. So the first thing I'll do is put on the cuff. Again, you want it a little high up, and you want those arrows again pointing right to your brachial pulse. All right, so we're going to be doing a two-step blood pressure in this one, which is just how I've learned it this semester. And all that means basically for the first step is that I'm going to be placing my fingers on her brachial pulse, and then I'm going to be pumping up the cuff and inflating this with air until I don't feel her pulse anymore. And then that's how you know for the second part, you pump it up 30 millimeters of mercury past where you stop feeling the pulse. So we'll do that for the first part, which the stethoscope is not required for. I'm just gonna put the gauge right here. Yeah, if you wanna just hold that. For this first part, so we'll find the pulse. All right, feel the pulse. So I'm gonna pump up my cuff. Where's this going? Let's see here. All right, there we go. All right, so I'll let it all out, which you can hear. I stopped feeling her pulse a little after 120, so I'm gonna pump it up next time for the second step at 150. And then you're usually supposed to wait about 30 seconds in between taking blood pressure readings, just so everything can get to a set level. So for the second step then, I'm gonna put on my stethoscope. And then it's important that your patient also does not have their legs crossed and that they're sitting upright, because that can mess with the blood pressure readings, and it's important that they don't speak at all, as that could mess with the muffling of the stethoscope and you could hear added noises that you will not be wanting to hear. So I'm gonna put these on. I'm gonna place the diaphragm of my stethoscope that we went over right back on her brachial pulse. And then with the gauge, if you just wanna hold it like this, so people can kind of see a little bit, I'm gonna be wanting to hear for her systolic and diastolic pressure. So the systolic will be the first heart sound I hear, which is called the Kharkov sound. And then your diastolic blood pressure is the bottom number, which will be the last heart sound I hear before it goes silent. So I'm gonna pump up the cuff now and inflate it to about 150. So about 150, and then I wanna let this valve go at about 2 millimeters a second. Perfect, just like that. And her blood pressure read about 120/80, which is a perfect normal level, and that's how you take blood pressure manually. To turn a stethoscope from your diaphragm to your bell side, you're just gonna be looking at this tiny little circle above here, and there'll usually be like an audible click, but all you do is rotate it, and then whatever side has that little dot is the side you're using to listen to whatever sound.
Hi, I'm Taylor, and I just want to talk about how this blood pressure cuff helps nurses. So what it does, it obviously detects our blood pressure, and you can monitor if it's high or low. A great thing about monitoring your blood pressure is you can see if there's any underlying conditions or potential health risks. So that's just a great thing. It's a great thing that nurses use, and so yeah, they're able to check blood pressure, and then it goes hand in hand with the stethoscope, of course. They're both great tools to track our health and make sure we're all healthy. So another reason why this is really important to Autumn is because it's a manual blood pressure cuff. Therefore, in the future, if she's ever using a blood pressure machine on a patient and something happens with like the service or the electricity of it, she has this manual one that she'll be able to use without any other resources. And it's really important because therefore she will be able to help her patients have a healthy and successful life. It's important to check blood pressure because you could find any underlying health conditions or whatnot. So therefore Autumn will be able to be a successful nurse.
The blood pressure cuff is really important to me because about a year ago, my sister had to go to the hospital because she wasn't feeling very good. And while she was there, she actually found out that her blood pressure was so high, she could have had a stroke. So they ended up catching it in time, and I kind of look at it as something that can almost save lives. So that's why the blood pressure cuff is extremely important to me.